So here we are. So tonight we're going to be chatting to Jonathan Laws as part of our Creativity Save Me chat show. So Jonathan is a London-based artist and print worker. If you haven't already, you need to check out the video on his website. There's an amazing video that talks you through his process, sponsored or made by Cos. So it's like a really, really cool, really high production value.
Yeah, I think it's like in collaboration with Cos.
Okay. Just making...
We're just adding Jonathan in now.
Here he comes. Lots of waves. Wave back.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi Jonathan, lovely to meet you.
No worries. Thank you for inviting me. I'm just going to turn up the volume. Sorry.
That's okay.
Sure. Yeah, go for it. Thanks for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
Today, everyone, we're joined by London-based printmaker and artist Jonathan Laws. So Jonathan, maybe you can just tell everyone a bit about who you are, what you do, just introduce yourself.
So yeah, I'm Jonathan Laws. I'm an artist and printmaker based at the moment in South London. I've been in back in the UK for about 2 years now. But beforehand, I was where I kind of started my job as a printmaker. Really happened when I was living in Berlin, where I was there for 8 years. So from
Wow.
So after I finished uni, I kind of moved over there, and then I was there from 2010 to 18, and now back in England.
And do you miss Berlin life?
Yeah, over the last couple of, I mean, I was really pleased to, or not really pleased, but I was happy to move on when I first left. But now I do miss it. I do kind of miss the freedom of the city. I mean, it's very spacious, and I mean, in a time like we are having at the moment, all I can think of is all the places that I could potentially be going there to have some time to myself. But instead, I'm stuck in London.
stuck in Peckham. How do you think Berlin changed in your 10 years there, 8 years there?
Oh yeah, massively.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first moved there, it was really cheap. I mean, it still is cheap now compared to London.
Yeah.
But it kind of changed from. I mean, there was this the slogan of Berlin. I don't know whether it still is. It used to be, but it was like sexy but poor.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a really cheap place to live. I mean, studio space, printing facilities were like insanely cheap. But
for artists.
Yeah, it was great fun. But then in the last few years that I was there, it kind of changed quite a bit. And lots of the artists I knew kind of moved away because it was. I mean, it was cheap, but they didn't really have many opportunities from it. It's a great place to. I found it was a great place to make work.
Yeah.
But not necessarily the best place to kind of launch a career, I think.
No.
Do you think it became oversaturated? Because I mean, we were at art school, and even back when we were there, the people saying the same thing. Like, go to Berlin, it's cheap to live, it's cheap to get studios, and that kind of probably resonated through art schools for years, didn't it? Do you think I
don't know. I think it just has. I mean, Berlin is definitely completely different to the rest of Germany. In my, I mean, I was born in Germany.
Okay.
So it's. I mean, Berlin doesn't really. I know London. Lots of people say London doesn't really reflect the UK, but yeah, Berlin is quite different. I mean, you've got lots. It doesn't have much money. There's a lot of money in places like Hamburg or Frankfurt or Munich. So I just don't think it kind of has the market. I mean, I know that they're trying to change that, but it's there's lots of. I don't know whether it will ever be like a huge art hub really for selling work. It's much more kind of like startup businesses and stuff. That's what they do.
Yeah. Somewhere to be when you want to be creative, basically.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it was really great for me to. I mean, I think just before I left the studio that I was in, it was like 70 euros a month.
Oh wow, no way.
And then you come back to Peckham.
Yeah. I mean, it's not too expensive. I mean, I would kind of expected London to be more expensive than it is. I mean, you know, the opportunity to potentially make more money in London, so it kind of balances itself out, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so going right back to the beginning then, kind of what got you into art? Like, what were you like at school? Like, were you always like an arty kid, or did you come
No,
in
not
a bit
really.
later? No?
So I think it was. I mean, this is a long time ago now. So it was like, yeah, I did GCSE art,
Yeah,
and I think I kind of did it because I didn't really know what else to choose. Because I went
right.
to grammar school, and it was very, very academic, and I mean, it was good for me getting my grades and things, but I didn't really see myself being like that. I mean, I'd always liked history. But then, I mean, it was all this writing stuff. I realised that I just wasn't kind of set up for that.
Yeah.
So then I took GCSE art, and then there was like a teacher. There was a teacher change, and we had a new teacher come in, and she kind of like introduced us to all this new way of working. Because beforehand it had been very like old school. It was lots of like drawing and portraiture and things like that.
Yeah.
It was fun, but then she suddenly like brought in like abstract stuff. So it was, you could get rid of that frustration of not having something perfect. You know, that kind of my view of abstract work. Sometimes it's a lot more free.
Yeah, a lot more energy in it, isn't there?
Yeah,
It's not
exactly. I mean,
static, it's not like revised.
you don't necessarily feel you have to get so frustrated with it being like completely perfect, because it's like it's your interpretation instead of just like directly drawing something. Or
Yeah.
so then I did that. Then I took it for A level, which was fun. And then I moved. So I was based in Salisbury, not far from like Southampton, and then I did a foundation year in Bournemouth, so a 1 year foundation, which I thought was. I mean, I don't think many people do foundations now. It kind of like gets a little skipped out a bit, and people kind of, because now you could do something like textiles or screen printing at school for A levels. But I did a foundation, and I mean, I loved it. It was like the most fun. It was my first year living away from home.
Really experimental.
Yeah, I mean, you spend like the first. I don't think it's like the first term you spend doing all like 6 different things. So you do like textile, fashion and textiles. You do fine art. You do 3D. And then photography and stuff. And then it was from there that I decided that I joined fashion and textiles purely for the printing. After that year, I would have stayed, but they didn't do what I wanted to do in Bournemouth when I was there. They do it now. And then I moved to Leeds, where I did kind of like by accident, just went to look at the university because a friend of mine lived up there. So I stayed with her for a few days. And then I kind of, I just fell in love with the course because it was just all about print. So it was printed textiles and surface pattern design.
And like, what were you like sort of through college and the early days of uni? Were you like a bit of a wild child, or were you like nothing?
No, I think in terms of work, I know then I was really, really like a real perfectionist.
Okay.
Which like I when you sent me the things of like things you were going to ask, there was one where you said, would you change anything?
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I would change. I mean, because I got so frustrated. I used to get so frustrated with things that didn't work, and now if it wasn't perfect, and now I mean I've kind of embraced that.
Becomes part of your process. And
yeah, exactly, which has opened up a whole new different way of working, and brings up a whole new different set of ideas and things. And it's about like learning from your mistakes. I make loads of mistakes, but it's how you work with either work with them or move on from them. So
embracing the mistake.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of making mistakes, is that a difficult thing to do in terms of things like cost? Are you aware of like, oh, if I mix up all this paint and it doesn't go well, it's like, oh, does things like that change how you approach it?
I mean, I don't really look at it like that, because I do it. I mean, I'm really pleased that I get to do a job which I don't just do for money. I mean, I do it because I love doing it. So it's like a hobby to me. So I mean, I mean, you can dwell on stuff like that, but I mean, I've kind of learned not to do that. I mean, luckily, I don't work with the materials aren't mega expensive. I mean, I print on paper. You know, it's expensive paper, but a piece of paper is a piece of paper. It's not messing up.
Yeah.
And I mean, the way that I work is that I don't really mess anything up and not use it. So I'll print over it, or I mean, I'll find some certain way to do it. I'll flip it. I mean, some people who, if they buy my prints, some of the larger, like one-off ones, I mean, you'll probably find like a little shape on the back or something, because I like flip it over.
A little extra bit of work there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just hate throwing stuff away, because I mean, it also gives you the chance to like look back later on, and then work with it again, and you might think, oh god, that was a really good way of working, actually. I like that color palette, etc., etc.
I really like the idea that perhaps maybe some of your pieces end up, you know, like a centimetre thick with like these layers of paint.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, sometimes, so the paper is, you know, like 300 GSM, you know, 350. But I mean, with the I mean, there's prints I've done that there's like 20 odd layers of stuff. Yeah. I mean, they might be pink underneath or whatever, and then they turn out like navy blue on top, or, you know, like white or something like that. Yeah.
With your process being so like freeform, when you turn up at the studio, what drives you? What gives you the ideas each day? Is there something that you think of an artist, or do you think of an experience, or how does it come to you?
It's always like really hard to explain, because I think it sounds a bit weird, but it comes kind of like naturally. I mean, lots of people ask me where I get my inspiration from, and I could literally say anything. I mean, I can be looking out the window now. I can look at the sky. I can look at the floor. I can look at the countryside.
A true artist.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, there's definitely things that you know, like working with colours. I'm always on the hunt for colours. I think I do it naturally, so I don't really know when I'm doing it. It's kind of just instinctive. But in terms of going to the studio, I mean, I do plan little bits in advance, but I usually find my way of working is that if I plan too much in advance, it usually goes a bit tits up.
Yeah, you
get I always like to have some freedom. I mean, even if I've like mocked something up on the computer, it generally turns out different.
yeah. Like the more you look at something, the more you tend to ruin it, don't you? And I know what you mean. That idea of that impulsiveness of art is when you have it, you shouldn't waste it by kind of planning too much. I mean, I
sit at a computer for hours trying to plan my screen prints. I mean, the planning and the process all come on the table. It's not in advance, really.
So what's your like studio like? Are there other people in there? Or is it just you on your own? You like got the music turned up to 11? Like
I do like to have. I mean, yeah, I usually listen to my headphones. But so I have desk space, which I mean, during this whole crisis thing, when the studio which I print at, when that closed, so I print at a studio called Sonsol's Print Studio in Peckham. And when that closed during the whole pandemic thing, I was lucky enough to still have my desk space. So I share it with Katrina, a friend of mine, Katrina Russell Adams, at the Bussey building in Peckham. So it's in the centre of Peckham. And luckily enough, that kind of stayed open because it's all individual rooms. So then you didn't really get into contact with anyone. Katrina is like rented the whole thing to me during the because she was working just from home, so she rented the whole space to me, and I made it into a little print studio, which actually I'll probably keep now, because it's quite good to do smaller stuff like that, and it kept me busy during a time when not much else was, you know, lots of people were confined to home, and I was lucky enough that my desk space is like a 10-minute walk from here.
Yeah, and it's self-isolated anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So I just went in there with all my hand sanitizer and everything, and just locked the door and then just printed all day.
Get creative.
Into the zone.
Yeah, exactly.
So when do you think that you'd made it, or was there a point where you're like, I'm so happy with how things are going now? Like, was there a turning point, or what kind of age? Where were you? What was happening?
So when I first moved to Berlin, I'd had 1 year of foundation and 3 years of uni, and then I did an internship in Amsterdam for like 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Then moved back home with my parents for a little bit, and then moved to Berlin. And then I moved to Berlin purely because I'd been there on holiday, and I really enjoyed the city. So I just thought, just give it a try. So when I first moved over there, I just got a job in like cafes, bars, things like that, to keep myself ticking over. But it wasn't until, I don't know, probably about 2015, where I just kind of reached a point where I just had enough of doing this kind of work. And I just realized that I wanted to just screen print. I mean, I was just gonna somehow make it happen. So I think it was probably about then that I just decided to turn everything around and just said, I've had enough of all this hospitality work. I'm just going to see how it goes, screen printing. And I mean, I never really looked back. I thought that when I moved to London, it might be tricky to begin with. I don't know, because I thought, extra expenses. I mean, my rent here kind of like more than doubled compared to Berlin. So I thought I may have to do a bit part-time job and stuff. But I mean, since I've come here, the opportunities I've got have been crazy, and I don't really have much time to do anything else apart from print now, which is
That's fantastic that you've managed to sustain yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was worrying to begin with, but I mean, I just hope, fingers crossed, it keeps on going, really.
Yeah. And what would you say has been like your biggest struggle along the way? Has it been like that leap back to London, or moving to Berlin in the first place?
I mean, it was quite difficult moving to London like 2 years ago, because I kind of viewed myself as a city person, but I mean, then London is on a bit of an extra level,
Yeah.
like lots of other big cities. But I'd never, like Berlin is a big city, but I mean, there's like 4 million people. So there's a lot of space, which I kind of need. So it kind of did take me time to adjust to the millions of people in London. Yeah. I mean, thank God. Luckily, I don't really have to leave Peckham now. So I can just go around the corner and work.
Yeah,
but I feel sorry for all the people that have to. I mean, the idea of rush hour would freak me out, definitely.
Yeah.
What's Peckham like at the moment? Is it getting busier? Is it kind of feeling back to normal?
I mean, I think it's always been busy.
Yeah. But it didn't stop. Lockdown didn't affect it.
No, not really. I mean, of course it did. I mean, the shops and things, but I mean, it's definitely like a fun place to be. But yeah, I mean, it's
the
people that make places like that, isn't it? It's like really interesting people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's complete. Like, I don't think we could have. My girlfriend and I don't think we could have picked a more different place than where we lived in Berlin before. She's laughing now. Where I mean, we were surrounded by where we last lived in Berlin. We were surrounded by old people. Like, everyone was 70 plus, basically. So now it's it's a lot more
bit more happening.
Yes, exactly. Yes, which is good.
Parties going on everywhere.
Yeah.
So has anything been harder than you expected on your journey?
Harder than expected. I don't think I can't really say that anything is too difficult, because I mean, I'm doing a job that I love. So like, it is my job, but it's also my passion. I mean, sometimes harder than expected. Probably sometimes it's quite hard for me to relax.
Yeah.
And step away from it. Yeah, I mean, step away from it and because sometimes I can feel even at the weekend, and I still do it just because I love doing it. I'll start doing work, and then it will be a bit like, oh, I mean, it's the weekend. I should probably
I should have some time.
Friends and family.
taking time to myself. I mean, I've always found it hard to relax, and I mean, I was really worried at the beginning of the whole pandemic thing because I work a lot better when I'm busy. When I have time to think, it's a bit like, I don't really do.
Yeah, I can relate to that, definitely.
So, but actually, I mean, I had, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 days or something of just, sitting on the sofa, and then bam. I mean, I was probably busier than ever.
Wow.
Especially through, I mean, kind of everything stopped, like galleries stopped, exhibitions stopped, collaborations, things like that. But then everything was just, I started doing more stuff for my online shop, and then everyone was like, I mean, I guess people were getting fed up of sitting at home looking at
people have time, don't they, to start looking and browsing.
So yeah, they had more time to look, and they wanted something colourful, and then I'm your man.
Yeah, everyone's doing home improvements, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the amount of people that you see now, you walk around and everyone's kind of got like a new living room because, or they like that. It's all
like IKEA boxes everywhere piling up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Did you so when you moved back to London, do you think your work changed? Because you were saying like you used to be surrounded by old people, and now you're like in the happening bit of London. Do you think that's influenced the style of your prints?
I think because I'm busier in London, I think that's affected my work because I always feel that the more work I do, the more it will progress. So if you do more over a shorter amount of time, it's going to progress at a quicker rate.
It's a nice way to think about it.
So I mean, in Berlin, I had, occasionally people coming to me and saying, "Can you do this?" And I would, like a commission, and I would have a lot longer to complete it. Now I don't try and do it. I mean, I enjoy working quickly, to be honest. I work better that way. If somebody says, "Oh yeah, can you do this?" and I need it in 6 months, I mean that kind of bit like. But if they say I need it in a week, not that I'm not telling everyone
need a deadline
now and say everything they want everything in a week, but I prefer to work at a quicker pace. So I think in that way that develops your work in itself.
Yeah. And with that in mind, like, what about lockdown? Do you think that's is that giving you time to think about it more? Is that changing things? Because I mean, it must do in some ways, even if you're not aware of it now. I know you're still busy.
I mean, look, I know it was a very, I mean, it still is a very, very weird time. But I don't know. I kind of, in looking back now with a bit of hindsight, I kind of enjoyed the slowing down of pace of life and not necessarily having to finish everything so quickly. I mean, it gave me an opportunity with the studio being closed. I was like gutted, but I mean, it gave me the opportunity to pick up like collaging again, which I haven't done since GCSE A level. Wow. And I mean, I made loads of collages out of old prints. I just cut them all up and like made them, and it's given me so many more ideas. And now I'm trying to make them on like thicker cards and like wood pulp to make them 3D. Which will be exciting. But then, I mean, I really wish I could do that now. But then everyone's jumped on it, and everyone.
Now they want their prints.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's cool. I mean, you time to experiment.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having another. I don't know. I would say, obviously, nobody wants to go through the experience we've been through again. But I mean, it's quite nice that everyone kind of stopped for 2 weeks. I mean, maybe that's a thing that people could look at in the future. Do you know what I mean?
I think there's definitely things to be taken from this, like you say. Obviously, a lot of it's not positive, but there are some positives. Like, you go out to parks, you've never seen so many people outside kind of having fun in parks, which I think is great.
Yeah, it really did force you to stay at home. I mean, I've even thought about sometimes, doing a staycation. But I mean, even with a staycation, you still end up
going back into it all, can't you?
Exactly. And I would just say, I'm just going to pop to the studio now, blah, blah. But no, this really kind of forced me into the spare bedroom where I was just there with my Pritt stick and my scissors.
Yeah, it does sound like you're back doing your GCSEs again, deadline.
Yeah, it did feel like that. But I mean, it was a lot of fun to try out new stuff and definitely. Like, I mean, I came out of it. I've come out of it with so many more ideas and like ideas for the future to do different things.
Yeah,
Does that
that's
make you
great.
feel really excited?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's I mean, it's kind of a weird time to feel excited,
Yeah.
but because I mean, there's the constant stress that you don't really know. I mean, what on earth is going on with many things around the world at the moment? It seems that we've all kind of like lost our way. But no, I'm excited to move on and hoping to get, I mean, you know, hopefully get away at some point in the, you know, before the end of the year.
Yeah.
Go away somewhere, it would be quite nice.
Have some space. Yeah, so have you seen this this whole journey evolve your way of thinking from when you were much younger to the way you are now? Like, has it changed your way of thinking about your whole process? And I know you said that you were very precious about it initially,
Yeah.
and that you're not so much now, but is there anything else?
Yeah, I guess like would you given yourself some advice now if you could like talk to your like 16-year-old self?
I would, I mean, yeah, it's that kind of point from, it kind of starts at like 16 until you're 21 when you've left uni, where it's all about getting the right grades. I mean, even if you do art, you still have to do all of that stuff. And I don't know, it's quite difficult because that's not really how I would do it. I mean, I know it works for certain. I mean, I was always useless at exams. I could, if you asked me to do an essay beforehand and give me time to do it, I could do it. If you stuck me down in an exam room with a time limit, I'd freak out, and then it would bring everything down. So it didn't really suit me. But in terms of, I mean, how would I would probably just say like, take it a little bit more easy on yourself, because I think a lot of people around that age kind of put so much pressure on themselves, which is kind of like put on you.
Yeah.
But actually, I mean, when you look back, it's not that. I mean, you know, when you're doing your GCSEs and A levels, I know they're very important, but when I look back at them now, it's for me, for what I've done, it doesn't really mean anything, to be honest. I won't get a commission or a collaboration with somebody because I got an A star at GCSE English literature, which is like shocking because I don't know anything about English literature. But
yeah, that's
Definitely.
yeah. I mean, it is one of those things that every next milestone kind of supersedes the one before, doesn't it? And it almost makes it a bit pointless. You get A levels, GCSEs don't matter. You get degree. Then you get beyond your degree, and suddenly no one's even that bothered about that. Do you have a degree? It doesn't even matter what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. I mean, I noticed when I came to London that lots of people had an MA, which is something that I would have looked at. But I mean, at that time, it just wasn't financially possible for me to do it. And I don't know. I mean, some people who do MAs, you know, you talk to them and they enjoyed it, and then other people you talk to them and they almost just did it just for the title. And I mean, instead of me doing that, I just stuck myself in a studio and locked the door. So I kind of did. I'm not going to say I did my own MA, but you know, you just learn on the job. It was very much like an apprenticeship kind of thing. Which I think you can get a hell of a lot more out. You know, I mean, even doing the internship, which I did for 6 months in Amsterdam, like I loved my course at university, but I probably learned more in that 6 months about myself and how to work and how to make money from it than I did in 3-4 years at uni.
I mean, that's a big statement. So would you recommend to anyone younger watching perhaps to kind of maybe think beyond what's around them, maybe think going abroad or taking other opportunities?
100%. I mean, that's the one thing that I feel. I mean, my girlfriend's from Barcelona, and she went to uni and then did a year in Helsinki, and then she moved to Berlin, and now she lives here with me. I mean, I was born in Germany and then came to the UK, then did an internship in Amsterdam, and then moved to Berlin. I mean, I think lots of people in the UK kind of need to just go and see what it's like somewhere else just for a little bit. I mean, anyone who leaves university, instead of doing an internship in London, I would say go and do it somewhere else for 6 months, just 6 months a year. I mean, it's not difficult. Loads of people said it must be really difficult. I mean, lots of things are difficult, but I mean, you just got to talk to another human being. I mean, so it kind of boils down to something quite easy, really. You just have to have a bit of, I don't know, some balls to do it, and
Yeah.
And break out of what's expected as well. I think the British way is to kind of stay put and study.
yeah. I mean, I know lots of people. You know, no disrespect to them, but you know, like they're still where we are, where we grew up at. You know, at school they still live there. That's fine. But for me, that wasn't ever a possibility. I was always willing to move on. And I mean, now I'm in London. I do like it, but I'll probably
move again.
Well, yeah, I was gonna ask next. Like, what's the dream? Do you want like a studio in the country, being creative every day, and be able to go for walks? What's the?
No, I think I'll kind of. I mean, I still need to be close to the city. I mean, the dream would be to like have, you know, a place here and then a place somewhere in like on the coast. I mean, so you can do 6 months here, 6 months there, that kind of thing. But I mean, for the next 10 plus years, I'll be in London for sure, because it's just, at the moment, it's just too good for my career to go elsewhere. But no, I mean, my girlfriend and I were talking the other day, and we could easily see ourselves going abroad again. After the London thing, and just sampling something else. I mean, it's a really great thing to go and do it, and I think more people from the UK especially should do it.
Do you think you would go somewhere to base yourself again and live, or do you think you'd just go traveling for a while?
Oh no, it would be to live.
Live again.
Yeah, I mean, I would really like to go. I mean, although I was only there like 8 months, I would really like to go back to the Netherlands and live there, because it kind of, I don't know, they seem to have kind of like a good way of
good quality of life.
I've heard that.
Yeah,
Friends that live there.
that kind of thing. I mean, I mean, I've just recently, during the lockdown, I've got myself a bike, which is, I mean, I haven't been on a bike for like 2 years. But I mean, all the time when I was in Amsterdam and all the time I was in Berlin, I used to bike everywhere. So now my legs are like completely destroyed.
Yeah.
But they're getting back to...
You'll get them back. You'll get them back.
Exactly.
So for a bit of a roundup for anyone who's watching, how's best to follow you? Would it be on Instagram or to go to your website?
Instagram, just hop on Instagram. I mean, that's basically like my portfolio, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, the website is there for the shop and big projects and things. But yeah, I mean, if you want to see what I'm doing now, today or tomorrow, or, you know, 3 days ago, then it's all Instagram.
Got you there.
Amazing.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
And wishing you all the best.
Yeah, it's been great. Really interesting.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
And thanks everyone for joining our creativity chat show. See you.
See you later, everyone.